I'm 85 years old. For 47 years, I held a scalpel in my hand. I cut into over 12,000 human bodies. I've seen inside more people than most doctors will ever meet. I've held beating hearts in my palms. I've watched the exact moment life leaves someone's eyes. That flicker, that fade, the way a person becomes a body in a single breath. And I'm about to tell you something that might save your life. Not your physical life, your real life. The one you keep putting in a drawer for later. The one you keep promising yourself you'll unwrap someday. In nearly 5 decades of surgery, I discovered something that medical school never taught me. Something that no textbook mentions. Something that haunts me more than any operation I ever performed. The disease that kills the most dreams isn't cancer. It isn't heart disease. It isn't stroke or diabetes or any condition you'll find in a medical journal. It's waiting. Waiting is the silent killer, and you're infected with it right now. You just don't know it yet. Let me tell you about a man named Arthur. It was 1987, October. Arthur was 54 years old, successful accountant at a big firm downtown, beautiful wife named Linda, 2 grown kids, nice house in the suburbs. He came to me for a routine procedure, gallbladder removal. Simple surgery, I'd done thousands of them. In and out, nothing complicated. The surgery went perfectly. Textbook. The next morning, I was making my rounds. I sat with Arthur for a few minutes, hospital small talk. He was in good spirits, already thinking about going home. And then he said something I've never forgotten. Something that changed how I see every patient who ever sat in front of me. He said, "Doc, you know what I'm going to do when I retire? I'm going to buy a sailboat. Nothing fancy, just big enough for 2. And I'm going to sail down the coast with my wife, Linda. We've been talking about it for 25 years, since our honeymoon, actually. But you know how it is. Work gets busy, then the kids came, then the mortgage, college tuition, never the right time, always something more important." I smiled. I nodded. I'd heard this kind of thing before. Everyone has a dream they're saving for later. Everyone has a sailboat. Then Arthur leaned in and said, 3 more years. That's the plan. I hit 57, I'm done. I walk out that door and never look back. And then, Doc, then I finally start living. I signed his discharge papers that afternoon, shook his hand, told him good luck with the sailboat. 14 months later, Arthur was back on my table. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4, the worst words a surgeon can say. I opened him up, hoping I'd find something I could fix, something I could cut out. But what I saw inside made my stomach drop. It had spread everywhere. Liver, lymph nodes. There was nothing I could do. Nothing anyone could do. I closed him back up. In surgery, we call that open and shut. It means the surgery is over before it really began. It means you've run out of time. Arthur died 6 weeks later. He was 55 years old. He never bought the sailboat. He never sailed anywhere. He never retired. He never started living. I saw his wife Linda in the hospital corridor the day Arthur died. She wasn't crying. That's what I remember. She was just standing there, staring at the wall, like she was trying to understand something that made no sense. She looked at me and said, "He kept saying next year. For 25 years he said next year, and now there are no more years." I went home that night. I sat in my kitchen in the dark, and I thought about all the Arthurs I had seen, all the patients who spoke about their lives in the future tense, all the people who treated the present like a waiting room for something better. When I retire, I'll spend more time with my grandchildren. When the mortgage is paid off, we'll finally travel. When the kids are grown, I'll focus on myself. When things slow down at work, I'll take care of my health. And then I get a phone call, and they're on my table. And when never comes. You know what nobody tells you about the human body? It doesn't wait for your schedule. It doesn't care about your 5-year plan. It doesn't know that you've decided to really start living at 60 or 75 or 70. Your body is keeping its own calendar, and it's not sharing it with you. I operated on CEOs who worked 80-hour weeks building empires they never got to enjoy, dead at 58. I operated on mothers who postponed their mammograms for 2 years because they were too busy taking care of everyone else. By the time they came to me, it was too late. I operated on fathers who hadn't taken a vacation in 15 years because the company needed them. The company forgot their names within a month. And here's what haunts me. They all thought they had time, every single one of them, right up until the moment they didn't. Let me tell you about the second patient that changed my life. Her name was Margaret. It was 1994. Margaret was 67 years old, retired school teacher, sharp mind, sharper tongue, the kind of woman who didn't suffer fools. Ovarian cancer. We caught it early enough to give her a fighting chance. She had the surgery, she did the chemotherapy, lost her hair, lost 30 pounds, but she fought, and she won. The cancer went into remission. After her treatment, I sat with her in my office. I said, "Margaret, you've been given something rare, a second chance. Not everyone gets this. Go, live. Go do everything you've been putting off." She looked at me with those sharp eyes and said, "Oh, I will, Dr. Harris, but first I need to get my strength back. Then I need to help my daughter with the new baby. Then the holidays are coming, you know how that is. Maybe in the spring. Spring would be perfect." I heard those words and I felt something cold in my stomach. I'd heard them before, from Arthur, from dozens of others. Spring came. Margaret was back in my office. The cancer had returned, more aggressive than before. It had spread. She died that August. I stood at her funeral. Her daughter spoke through tears about all the trips they'd planned together. London, Paris, a cruise to Alaska, mother-daughter adventures they'd been dreaming about for years. "We were going to go next year," she said. "We always said next year." Next year. There it is again, the most dangerous phrase in the English language. I want you to understand something. I'm not just talking about terminal illness. I'm not trying to scare you with stories of cancer and death. I'm talking about the ordinary, everyday tragedy of postponed living, the slow death that happens while you're busy making plans. You don't need a diagnosis to run out of time. You just need to keep waiting. Because here's the medical truth that nobody wants to hear. Your body starts declining the moment you stop paying attention to it. Every year you spend stressed and sedentary, your arteries are quietly narrowing. Your joints are slowly stiffening. Your capacity for joy is gradually shrinking. I've seen 50-year-olds with the bodies of 70-year-olds because they spent 30 years too busy to move, to rest, to live. And I've seen 80-year-olds hiking mountains because they understood something most people don't. Health is not a bank account you can withdraw later. It's a garden. If you don't tend it now, there won't be anything left to harvest when you finally have time. In 1998, I had my own wake-up call. I was 58 years old, chief of surgery, working 60-hour weeks, important man, vital man. The hospital couldn't function without me. At least, that's what I told myself. One morning, I was scrubbing in for a procedure, routine surgery, done it 1,000 times, and my left arm went numb. I knew exactly what was happening. I'd seen it 1,000 times in other people. I just never thought I'd feel it myself. Mini stroke, a warning shot across the bow. I was lucky, no permanent damage, but I remember lying in that hospital bed, the same kind of bed that I'd seen so many of my patients in, the same ceiling, the same beeping monitors. And I realized something that shattered everything I thought I knew about myself. I had become Arthur. I had become Margaret. I had spent 30 years saving other people's lives while slowly, quietly neglecting my own. I had postponed everything: my marriage, my children, my health, my joy, all for a career that would replace me in 2 weeks if I died. I retired the next year. My colleagues thought I was crazy. They said, "You're at the top of your field. You have years left in you." But I didn't want years left in surgery. I wanted years left in life. And these last 27 years, since I hung up my scalpel, have been the richest of my existence. Not because I made more money, not because I achieved more recognition, because I finally started living. I took my wife Eleanor to Italy. We danced in a piazza in Rome at midnight. I was 60 years old, and I had never danced in public before. I was always too busy,